Hello. Looking forward to doing 002 of the Facebook Live. We'll get started here in just a second. Gonna wait for a couple of folks to pop on in, but thank you so much for joining. Say hello in the comments below if you're here. Would love to hear from you. Let me know who's watching. Happy Friday to you. What's on the agenda for you? Get some good placement on this. Mark Steiner, what's up, brother? How are you? Good to hear from you. Looking forward to talking today. Shane, what's up? We are going to talk about communities. It's a big word these days. Obviously, I've written a book about it. A huge part of it here in the Norfolk, Virginia Beach startup community. But talking about not only how to grow one, but different ways to understand what you're actually in. So excited to do this with you guys today. Who else is with us today? What's up, Carl? How are you? Good morning. You guys had your coffee yet today? This is cup number 2. Some of you may have been up a little late watching some professional basketball. Wake up, it's ready. It's time to make things happen. All right, so we're going to talk about communities, and while I have created a community, I'm a little concerned about communities in general right now, and here's why. I believe that for the most part, the way that communities are being developed, and if at any point you guys have questions or clarification or would like to just comment, please feel free to do so in the comments. But I'm concerned with communities, and here's why. I think there's a lot of communities being built and a lot of exposure is being represented in all these things. But I think that a lot of people don't understand where their kind of community sits in your traditional sales funnel. So real quick, if you guys aren't familiar with the sales funnel, a sales funnel is typically a series of events that takes for someone to take from one kind of high level stage down to a conversion. And the best way to kind of say this is that from an exposure standpoint, 100% of the people that you get will then funnel down to a number less than 100% of the people that you'll convert into the thing that you want them ultimately to purchase or be a part of. And so hopefully that makes sense. So, and typically it takes at least 5 to 7 interactions for someone to convert into the thing that they want them to do. And studies show that people kind of stop following up after step 2, and studies also show that that sales conversion can actually take anywhere from 5 to 20 steps to actually happen. And so if people quit basically between steps 3, 4, and 5, but all of the conversions happen between 5 and 20, there's a big loss there. John says, I like to serve my immediate small community with my plant business and give away product when it enhances someone's experience creating relationships. I think that's spot on, John. But here's where my concern with communities are. People don't know where their actually community and the things that they do day to day is. And most of the time, the things that they're posting on Facebook, the engagement that they're bringing with people is really top of the funnel, right? Can you guys see the whole thing? So it's really top of the funnel. And so if you're thinking of, I don't know, a beer bong from college, you know, you put something in there and then what comes out is a smaller speck out of it. And so it's the exact same type of thing. And so it's literally big and then funnels down into something smaller. And so I think a lot of people think of, you know, spending all this time in their community, and that's great, and they're building a relationship and doing all these things. But some of the challenges that they encounter is they spend sometimes 90 to 95% of their time on the top of the funnel and actually not working on funneling them down into something that can produce more value to their community, can create a monetary value to themselves. And what happens is they spend a lot of time building the community, a lot of time spending time in the community, and they don't end up actually being able to convert that into anything because they have no process or kind of tiers of people ready and willing to kind of make them money. And so at the end of the day, we got a lot of different companies and communities associated with Hatch and around Hatch, and we do a lot of freemium events, but ultimately we're trying to dive people down into something a little bit later. Welcome, Jared. Hope you're doing well. And I think a lot of people they spend all their time at the top and not on kind of the next levels. And then when they realize 3, 6, 9, 12 months later, hey, why aren't I making any money? It's because you haven't spent any time trying to actually facilitate those next steps. All you focus on, can't speak today, focus on is that top level, and they don't know any of the other things that people want that's deeper that they may be able to learn from them. So what kind of communities are you guys creating? Obviously, John, you got Glass Gardens. That is, I see it everywhere. You're posting stuff online and then encouraging people basically through your steps to then come and build one or come and purchase one. And so you're doing it there, but a lot of people aren't actually thinking about that next kind of level. They think only at the top instead of kind of how can I convert those down. So what kind of communities are you building? Jared, you've got 757 Collective. How have you been able to develop that, and what is your strategy around that to convert that into more business for you? More coffee. Don't be shy, people. Who else is with us today? Love to hear from you guys. But the key, I think, with communities is really understanding what people want, how to give it to them, and then figuring out, is that something that you should keep kind of top level, or bringing it down step by step into that next thing. Nick says, so as you know, my community is the photography community, but I would like to reach out to the educational level. For example, schools, and how I can lease equipment to them for that monthly income. So Nick, I think it's about starting relationships with them and learning what they're looking for. Oftentimes what we want and what they want are two different things. And so I would create a relationship with them, maybe use them, put them kind of at the top level of your sales funnel and say, hey, I'm willing to show maybe some of your students how to use a specific piece of gear, and that's kind of your top level community. And then the people in there that are interested and willing and have kind of budgets to do things, you can start having relationships and conversations with them to try and get people to engage in that kind of way. And so as John was kind of saying, it's kind of seeding the tip jar. If you ever go to a bar or you ever see kind of a list of like, oh, fill this out, and no one else has ever done it, likely people are afraid to be that first one. If you've seen, I think it's the most popular TED Talk video, it's about a dude dancing in probably Colorado or something, and he just is one guy dancing, and so he was the first one, and then the second guy comes up and then dances, and then he follows the leader, and then all these other people come up. And so by seeding the tip jar and giving them a little bit of something, if you were watching yesterday, it's giving a little piece of chicken at the food court, and then saying, oh, if maybe you want more, here's how I can give it to you. And so I think maybe not giving them an actual piece of equipment as kind of that seeding of the tip jar, but maybe giving them some sort of educational value, and then saying, hey, we also have this other information for you as well. Could be a good fit for you, Nick, in that kind of case. But I think sometimes getting people just to try it. Why do you think car dealerships allow you to test drive the cars first? All these different things don't change at all in the process. What changes is the fact that the way that it happens is a little different. And so I would say that a test drive is the same as the food court, is the same as seeding the tip jar. All of those things are little things that can get people deeper in. All right, keep the comments coming. This stuff is going good. Mark says, HR Franchise Forum started as educational event with SBDC, now doing monthly seminars and quarterly social cocktail networking. It's a great way to establish those things, bring them together. Yeah, exactly, for Kickstarter. Most people don't know this, but 25 to 50% of successful Kickstarter campaigns are 25% seeded before they even go live. Now I know that seems kind of weird, but basically they say, we know who is going to give us a decent amount of money beforehand, and they don't necessarily collect, they just say, hey, we're about to do this Kickstarter, we know that you're excited about it, are we going to be able to get your money or not? And then when they press go, you basically send out a post that says, hey, we're live, and then within minutes basically those people start purchasing. And how many Kickstarters or Indiegogos or crowdfundings have you seen where there's like $0 or $1 and no one wants to jump on it because it doesn't seem like the cool thing? The reason you see the tip jar in this case is because people look at that and say, oh, this looks interesting, I want to jump on board. And so it's getting creative with that. And so when you see people who sit there with no money on there, and even if it's a good product, the reason is because, psychologically people don't want to be the first, or they want to be followers more than leaders. Lucian, how are you? I haven't seen you in a while, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Lucian says, I think live events are a core piece to any business. How do events relate to the community? Well, I think in your case, Lucian, your events might actually be kind of that conversion. So you could have actually, I don't know if you're doing this, but you could create kind of a beer advocate community, whether that's a form that you developed, maybe a Facebook page or something like that, where people are learning about beers, or maybe that's like the blog post where you're doing the pairings with the food, and that's kind of the community that you built, and then have them kind of say, or you say, hey, we have this event coming up where people can meet each other. And so I don't think there's anything really crazy about that, but your event might actually not be, might be a piece to kind of that funnel. Piece of it is the way I would look at it kind of in your world. How are things going, by the way? Steven says, based in our conversations in regard to your new company called Market Muscles, hope that's going well as well, I started to offer free web advice in a group of martial arts school owners. On my second free piece of advice that I offered, at the end of my message, I offered to quickly analyze anyone's website who left a comment with their website URL. I now have a small list of people who are thinking about improving their site. I think this is a good start to my sales process. Thoughts? Absolutely, right? So whenever someone looks at you and says, I think I'm interested, or here I'm giving you, here are my problems, now it's like when someone walks in the door at Hatch, I'm like, okay, if we lose them, it's our fault, because someone clearly has seen us somewhere or sees something outside in kind of our propaganda, and they say, oh, I want to start a business, or I'm interested in this type of thing. And so it's now your responsibility, it's now your job to get them closer to that conversion. And so, by having kind of a one-on-one onboard process or one-on-one conversation with people, Stephen, I think you are now seeing of this small group of people, let's just say it's 5, that's 5 people that are likely interested, because the problem that they're having now is the solution that you've hopefully created and solved, that they are going to likely be what I would call kind of a hot prospect, or someone that you could probably land within the next few days or weeks, depending on where their cycle of billing is allocated to be a part of you. So I would create very strong relationships with them, maybe even give them super value, give them a lot of even more information, just to try and keep them really close. And at the end of the day, if they don't purchase, keep them kind of in a loop forever, but learn really what they're looking for. Think about the ways that they're communicating with you, the words that they're saying, and maybe even start using that in kind of your dialogue and lingo with other people on your site. And then also when you're just talking to people one-on-one. Hope to see you next week, Lucian. Well, so Steven says, how soon should the actual pitch happen? So, studies show, and I'd say in our business Hatch, it is around 5 to 7 is when we actually pitch it. It can be really difficult, I think. So someone walks in and basically we say, hey, we don't want to be like every other group. We don't want to be bombarding you. We don't want to, we want to make you comfortable, right? And people get really scared when you come in and basically say, oh, buy my crap right now. Okay, so you're likely not a restaurant, right? If someone's coming into your restaurant, obviously they need to buy then. If you're in a shopping mall, you know, buy them there. But if you have an online business or something where someone isn't, you know, kind of in that mood, if you're not Amazon, if you're not a shopping mall, if you're not a restaurant, if you're not walking on the car dealership, you know, you probably need to educate that person a little bit more, have a little bit more conversations with them. And so, you know, I think you have to feel this out, Stephen. And, you know, for us, we like to say, so here's my funnel typically. So someone comes to our website and we say, hey, come to an event, or here's a piece of content that we might like you want. Okay, so that's step one. Number two is we need a little bit of information from you to then collect from you, kind of mutually beneficial. So I don't have any business cards on me right now, but think about someone giving you a business card, in return you get their business card. Okay, so that's step two. Also could be the email opt-in conversion on a website, or it could be a sign up for like a free meetup. So we do a coffee meetup. So that's kind of step two. Number three is they have to show up. Right? So if they don't show up, you have their information, but you got to find out what happened there and why they didn't. Number four is saying what happened in there that was, what kind of information did they say to you that makes you believe that you have some of that information that you can then educate with them, and then see where that kind of conversation goes. Usually if you have some sort of educational information that you can provide them, they can then take that information, learn from it, and then you can say, well, what other problems are you having with this, or what other clarification do you need from this? And then on step five, you can say, you know, you've come to our site, you've seen this, you've come to our event, you've gotten all this information, and then kind of recap and say, I've given you all these things too in kind of blog post form, or we've had one-on-one calls. You know, I want you to know that we also have this other kind of premium product that we would like you to you know, purchase or have or be a part of, and would love to see if you're interested in that, because what I've seen is that where your kind of pain points are is the solution that we have, and I think that it could be a good fit for you to come on board. Now obviously the wording in those things is going to change, but if you start having and giving value to people multiple times, Stephen, I think, and you think that that person needs your product, I think you know, starting to kind of let them know that, hey, we're open for business, we have the stuff that you want, and we want you to use it. And then learn from what they say and see if that can convert into a sale. Remember, if you want an action to happen, you have to create that action. So you cannot anticipate that a sale is going to happen if you don't ask for the sale. Yeah, Mark, great point. Lucian, if you can leverage the events to build your brand as an expert, then the events will pay off for you. People do business with people they trust. Absolutely. And that's extremely important. People only do business with people that they trust. And so that's why you try and create things that people will trust, whether that is an introduction, a piece of press from someone else endorsing it. How often do you make a decision on something because someone liked it and you are friends with that person, or you look up to that person and you want to be there? So it's all these little micro communities together and then kind of overlapping and being there together. And so back to kind of where we started with this, and keep bringing up the questions. You guys are doing great. Thank you guys for listening. But kind of going back to the whole thing is communities are extremely important, but the majority of the times what they are is top of the funnel into something later. And so if you are looking at it and you're wondering, why aren't I making money on my community? What kind of steps have you done to put things in place to make sure that people actually can go through the next steps of your community? And I think a lot of times people aren't actually doing that. They just do the top of the funnel stuff, and then they don't know why they're not making money, months later. Does that make sense, right? So a lot of people do not focus on the next steps. They only focus on that high level thing. Think about it like this. If you were to watch an ad online or on your online would be your computer or your cell phone, or maybe at home, don't you think that that's a series of information or an advertisement or top of the funnel that those people are trying to get you to do something else? Likely there is then a process to go through there if the ad is going to do well, right? So people don't want to have they know that a lot of people are going to see the ad, and if they can get those people to do those next steps, they're going to convert them into something closer and closer to the conversion that they want. How often have you gone online or seen an ad somewhere and then immediately purchased that thing? Likely not, because you needed a series of endorsements and expectations and wanting to know what you're getting. And so that doesn't change. It's just the way that you consume it or get it distributed to you is where the different mediums change. And so once you have the customer, that's great, but oftentimes it's trying to get that customer first that is the challenge. And so it's by getting that information in and then consuming it and trying to figure out what exactly are people looking for from those things. And so it's, as we talked about yesterday, it's, taking a risk, learning from the risk, and then winning from it. So you can't win if you don't take the risk. You can't win if you don't know what people are looking for. And so Stephen, just like we've been talking for a couple of minutes, it's having those conversations with people. And if you start seeing a trend where people start saying, oh, well, this is what I suck at, and that's what your site does, I would speak to that, right? A lot of times people talk about, oh, this is exactly what we do, but that isn't what resonates to someone, right? Think of the Apple iPod when it first came out. It wasn't the first MP3 player. It wasn't the first audio player. But what it did is it explained it in a way that people could consume it and then understand it. So right now, how many of you guys are using an iPhone or a cell phone that has 10 gigs of information on it? Your Dropbox, maybe you have 10 gigs of Dropbox information. Right? You're probably all going, yeah, I get it. But how many of you actually know what 10 gigs is? You don't, right? Unless you're super smart and can understand what that means, how can you kind of divide that into consumer understanding like Apple did, where they said, it's not 10 gigs, it's 10,000 songs. And so my math might be a little off on there, maybe it's 100,000 songs. But you can understand what that means, where a lot of people, 10 gigs seems like a lot, but if 10 gigs was one song, is that worth it? Maybe not. But the best thing is understanding kind of what you're getting and saying it in a way that people can understand and consume that information. Ben Bond, how are you? Good to hear from you. Who else is on today? What kind of questions do you guys have right now? We got a lot of good stuff. You guys are saying great things. Thank you guys for being here. Hello, April. How are you? Great to hear from you. Just want to know what's keeping you up in your communities. Where are kind of your struggles? What exactly are you not understanding in kind of your process? And so by finding all those people, by the way, that's very difficult. And so to be able to build a community that has, even 2 people is difficult, but to build a community that has hundreds or maybe even thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, that is the difficult thing. But then it's kind of, it's sifting through, I was trying to figure out what the word was. It's sifting through and trying to find the people that actually are looking for the other things that you have that you can give to them, and then making sure that they find you, but not killing the community at the same time by just bombarding them with sales pitch after sales pitch. And so, Nick, you're funny. And it's really understanding what people are looking for other than just your top of the line kind of sales funnel. So we have an event called Startup Night. Nick, I believe, is going to pitch at it next week. We've done it for about 60 plus months maybe. Started in 11, I think. And it's a way for people, it's kind of when Shark Tank, I guess, first came out too, but it's for people in kind of the 757 area to present their ideas or companies to kind of the community here. And so it's a free event, and the people that get to pitch are members of our 1004 program. Nick's one of those, and so he as a company, he's going to be presenting. So Nick, ultimately that's up to you. I would look through some of the previous videos, but I think what you should work on is what is going to, and I think this is where this event is really good. But it's what is going to get you the most bang for your buck, right? Is it doing a blatant sales pitch with people? Is it educating people on kind of what you're doing? Is it kind of practicing an investor pitch? I know you're trying to raise a little bit of capital so you can purchase some more goods. You know, what is going to give you the most bang for your buck, right? And so is it, and then kind of understanding who is going to be in the crowd. And so typically our viewers that are at this event are people who are other business owners, people looking to maybe create a business or looking to be a customer or finding kind of the hottest new things in town. Those are typically who our customers are for that event. And so knowing that, oh yeah, and then people that are looking maybe to invest in companies. And so knowing that, how can you understand that that is a good information or a good thing to then give to them so that they can kind of be a part of your community too, right? And so you would look at Startup Night being maybe a piece of your funnel saying, oh, okay, if I can get one of those people to then come into my funnel of this, then likely I can get them to do all these other things. And so maybe it's saying, hey, and I think you have done this, right, Nick? Like you create a Hampton Roads photography forum on Facebook that has thousands of people on it. You know, I would reach out to that group and say, hey, I'm doing this pitch at Hatch, and then having the people that are at our event actually trying to get them to go to your forum as well, and then making sure that your forum is a thing that kind of funnels people down. I keep talking about this as a funnel, and it really is important because you have to understand from the mindset that 100% of people are going to come in, and somewhere less than 100% are going to be your conversions. A lot of time in business, that conversion is actually like less than 1 or 2%. And so if that's the case, there's going to be a lot of sifting through to get there. And you have to kind of understand that it's okay. It's just you're learning from those things. It's not failing. It's not working. It's just that not everyone is looking for what you're doing. Brian, 2 days in a row, good to hear from you. We're talking about communities, how to build a community, and then how to understand where your community is so that you can sift through them and then understand where your community lies in your sales process. So yeah. Is that helpful, Nick? Steven, is that helpful? Lucian, is that helpful? Mark? Brian, what's keeping you up today, man? You've built a community yourself. What are some of the challenges that you have in building your community, Brian? Thank you. And so I tell people this. This whole live thing is interesting to me. Sometimes I get the messages, sometimes I don't. So I'm trying to do kind of a split screen thing on my computer so that you guys can comment and then I can get it and then respond to it as well. But you know, building a community is what kind of the backbone of Hatch is, right? But it's understanding, and I'm not trying to pitch my company. I'm just trying to say like this is what I've done, and what are the things that we've learned from this that, and a lot of you guys understand kind of Hatch's model. Our members are a bit a piece of these things, so you can kind of say, okay, I understand what he's saying. This is how he did this to me, so that I can then have you understand this, so then you can figure out how to do it in your own kind of model. Nick, I can't see your question yet, but let me refresh. Shane says, do you have any suggestions with building your brand if you are in a big company? Yeah, I mean, what defines you in that big company, right? So, for instance, let's say that, now I'm going to be a little aggressive in this, but let's say that the business community is a company here in the 757, which is the Norfolk, Virginia Beach area of Virginia, right? And so southeastern Virginia. So let's say that's a big company, right? And I am an employee of this big company, which is the business community here. What can I do that will make me look different than anyone else in that thing, right? So that answer is jeans and a t-shirt, right? Everyone else wears suits and a tie. Here I come in jeans and a t-shirt. That little piece of branding says, wow, he looks different. Then people say, well, what is he doing? And then I come in and hopefully can provide a ton of value through that. Now, if I suck at that part, then obviously we have to adjust those things. But let's say that your product is something of value that people want. How can you look different? And I say this all the time. And people are like, well, you wear jeans and a t-shirt, you know what? And I'm just like, but you have to realize that's part of the brand. And part of the brand is being strategic in it. What is going to make you look different? Shane, in your case, it could be you actually coming to work early and staying late, where everyone else is just bitching and moaning. Maybe that's the one thing that makes you look unique in that big company. As simple as it may seem, I'm sure there's a lot of people in the business that you're working, and I don't even know where you work now, that just bitch and moan or show up late, don't work. And if you bust your tail and people see that, your brand is someone that realizes that you are a good work ethic person. And so we talked about this a little bit yesterday. Chick-fil-A may have a very similar product to some other fast food. Debatable, I get it. But let's say that it's the exact same product. What makes them different is their customer service, the my pleasure piece onto that. And so if you can take that information and say, that is what is going to make me different by being the best customer service representative at my big company, you are then your own unique small brand at that company, and people are going to want your input more because you are actually giving some sort of value. Nick, yes, so we do that every Tuesday morning, but we are actually exploring. So Nick says, speaking of community and being new to Hatch in 1004, isn't there a night for all of those associated with Hatch that own and run a business to get together? And so it's not necessarily at night. We do it every Tuesday, and then we also do the online forum as well. Great idea. We should definitely do something where we get together, have a kumbaya moment or something, and bring people together. But we do it in a way right now every Tuesday, and that's from kind of 9 to 1. 9 to 12 is office hour, kind of open office hours, and then 12 to 1 is kind of an industry expert hour. But yeah, maybe we put together a bar night or something, or just bring people to the office or something like that. But love the idea. And Shane, maybe it's your beard too. You know, maybe that's a big thing for you. I don't know. Brian says, some of the challenges I face are supporting the different organizations that our members love without overshadowing or favoring one, because everyone is an emotional connection with different nonprofits. So, you know, that's difficult because of what you just said. You know, everyone loves one more than others. And so it's kind of like, you have kids, you know, do you love your firstborn more than your other? Or maybe you have more emotional ties to it. So I would say, try to take yourself out of that kind of situation, right? And say, how do you remove the emotional piece out of it? And just do, try and find quantifiable things, right? And so if everyone loves Operation Smile because of the things that they're doing, you know, everyone loves that thing, but then there's someone else that loves the Ronald McDonald House, and they love it for that reason. So you're never going to be able to get them to change the ways, but maybe there is something else that underlies that is different, so that you don't have to be one to all of them. Or find fun and creative ways that as a group you can work together to get the same challenges out. I mean, I know recently, I think there was, and I can't remember the exact name, but it was basically a raising money for local nonprofits, and a lot of them together, and obviously some of them, and I don't even know what the numbers are, but obviously some of them were going to do better than the others. And so sometimes numbers do speak, and you do have to go that way. But I would say, if this question is more in regards to how do you spend your time or what do you share or not, maybe you just say, okay, I have 10 spots available every month to do this. It's first come, first serve. Or maybe you take all the nonprofits that people like, put them in a hat and just pull them out and say, these are the ones that we're going to go to this month. And it's all by randomness. But that way people can't get mad at you. And so your time is just as valuable as anyone else's, just like mine is. And if you waste that time by doing the same thing over and over again, what can you get back? Oftentimes I tell people, don't make emotional decisions. Really understand what you're getting after it. And so if you go to the same networking event over and over and over again, and you emotionally enjoy it, but from a financial standpoint, you actually see no return on that investment, I would look at that and say, well, maybe this isn't the best thing to be a part of because I emotionally enjoy it. And if you go for that reason, then go for it. But if I'm in business and I'm trying to grow my business and I'm looking at things and I hear, how am I going to make money on this thing? And yet I go to this thing and emotionally I love it, but financially I'm getting nothing out of it. Then maybe it's time for you to reassess that specific event and say, I shouldn't go to this. And so I believe that we should look at business as data and data only and say, data doesn't lie. This is where I'm getting my money or not. And so, if I was doing a specific ad and I did an A/B comparison of the two, and one of them was more than the other and it was significantly better, I would throw more dollars at that ad than that ad because it's a trend and it's telling me I'm getting a better return on my investment right here rather than right here. Hey Jackie, hope you're doing well. Creating your own added value, but also recognizing what works for you and what you can sustain. Yeah, I think that's really important. Creating things that are there. You're welcome, Brian. What do you mean by keeping business in the right cortex, Jackie? You need to be different. Someone asked me today to talk about value propositions, and I think that's important, but really it's about, what is the problem that you're trying to solve, and can you give them that solution? That's really a value proposition, right? I mean, can people really get the information that they're looking for, and can they get it in a community standpoint ongoing with you? There's a group that just joined 1004. It's called Western Branch Growing Forward. It was created by a lady named Kathy, she may be on here, who was looking to stop hearing the bitching and moaning, but also trying to walk and change the ways that her kind of borough of Chesapeake, Virginia was. And so she created this forum, this community where people can go and in a polite way try and work together to create different things. And so the problem that she saw was that people were just talking or complaining about things, but no one was willing to actually go to bat and try and fix those things. And so now she has, I think, 6,000 members of this group in a small little portion of Chesapeake, and a lot of people are receiving a ton of value from it because they're learning what stores are there. They're figuring out what challenges different areas in that kind of borough are having. They're learning about different political candidates, and so it's figuring out what people want and then solving that problem for them. Shane says, so as the leader of Hatch, and I read these in real time, so if you guys ever say something, and if you've ever seen me on TV, I'm totally like Ron Burgundy, so if there's like a question mark at the end and I'm not supposed to say a question mark, I'll be like, I'm Ron Burgundy. So just be careful with what you say, or write something and I'll say it and it'll be funny. So as the leader of Hatch, you help many groups. Have you ever had to deal with groupthink in your Hatch community? How have you been able to lead your Hatch network community? Go a little bit more in depth on that, Shane. I don't exactly understand your context. Yeah, give me a little bit more context on that. Hey Dave, what's up? So Jackie says, you were talking about emotional ties and keeping the mind of the business you get from it. So you are saying don't put business in the back of your mind because of your emotional ties. Let me try and consume that a little bit. Right, so exactly. So what you don't want to do is allow emotions to take over everything, because if you emotionally love something but then you realize that it's getting nothing out of it, then you likely are wasting your time. And if you do it once and you waste an hour, that's one thing, but then if you do it twice, 3 times, 4 times, and 5 times, you're starting to add a ton of time on there, and it can be a real big challenge. Andrew, hello, how are you? Hope to see you soon. So Shane, just give me a little bit more clarification on what you want there, so that I can hopefully answer that a little bit more. Thank you guys so much for being with us today. We're going on 41 minutes. Don't want to waste any more of your time if you don't want it, but keep those questions coming. If you guys have anything, let me know. You can also just feel free to send me a one-on-one message. All you have to do is message me on the page. I usually return it fairly quickly if I'm on the Facebook, or you can email me if you don't want to comment there. Zack, Z-A-C-K, at startwithhatch.com. That's startwithhatch.com, Z-A-C-K. Happy to answer any of those questions as well. All right, so Shane, since you're not answering, I'll try and take a stab at this. But my guess is what you're asking is how do, so here you go. So groupthink, group of people in which the desire of harmony or conformity in the group results in an irrational or dysfunctional decision-making outcome. You're making this very difficult, sir. Yeah, so that's where we use data, right? And so it's all about data. And so we look at people and say, look, you can keep doing these things, and as long as you understand what you're getting out of it and you're okay with that, that's okay. But I think Brian was talking about this yesterday with surveys. And so surveys can give you certain information. They can also give you information that can be taken out of context that you don't really understand, that you can develop conferences like we did, and then they fail because we didn't go deep enough to really understand it. And so we always look at things and we try and say this and live it as much as possible. Obviously, emotions are what we enjoy, so we want to consume them and do more of them. And so some people, like me, I love to meet people, I love to meet new people, I like to talk all day, kind of like this, but sometimes this isn't what's best for business or best for life. And so if I should be doing something different, I need to constantly analyze what I'm doing. I don't have it on me, but I'm constantly looking at our inventory. I'm constantly looking at our bank statement saying, is this thing that we're using really something that we could keep doing, or could we spend 1 or 2 hours on creating our own solution instead of paying hundreds of dollars to use the same thing over and over again? And so I think it's a really understanding what people want and what kind of ROI can you get from it. So have you ever had to deal with employees that become lazy, and were you able to pull them out? So I've been a part of a lot of different companies, some that I've owned, some that I haven't, whether it was maybe even being a coach of a swim team or a parent. It's all about relationship. It's all about communication, right? And I think that if we dwell on something and not communicate with that person, or if we let it get bigger and bigger and bigger, the more down the line that we go without having that conversation, the more likely that, a boom kind of moment is gonna happen, and that person or me, it's gonna end badly. But I think as soon as you can address something, the sooner. A great example is a couple of days ago, we're going to be hosting a new event that is kind of a nationwide tour. And of this, someone on my team said, or the person who's putting it on is not us, but we're kind of endorsing it. I'm the MC of the event, and they want 100 people to be on this thing. Someone on my team said, that's unobtainable. And I said, it's unobtainable at with that kind of attitude. You know, everything's possible if we go after it. And so by kind of jumping on it right then and communicating, we're more likely to solve that issue then than allow it to go on for days, weeks, months, years, and then you realize that boom goes the dynamite and really, really, really bad things happen. So it's about understanding why they're not productive, Shane. It's understanding why things are going bad, and if you cannot get them closer, if you cannot get them out of that scenario, did you communicate with them? Did you figure out what the low-hanging fruit is with them and all those type of things? And so I think the key is really understanding why things aren't going productive. Do they have the right tools? Are they just having bad days? Do they need to change the time frame? I mean, maybe it's as simple as, you know, they're driving, they're getting stuck in a lot of traffic, and if they could come in a little bit later and stay a little bit later, or come in a little bit earlier, or leave a little bit later, that would completely change things. And so I think it's really understanding where their problems are and can you solve them as the employer. That's it. So I'm going to turn this off. Really appreciate you guys' time today. If you guys have any other questions, I'll keep commenting in the chat. Feel free, if you thought this was valuable, to share it with your networks as well. And if you guys have any other questions, you can either hit me up in direct messages here, or hit me up on email at Zack, Z-A-C-K, at startwithhatch.com. Really appreciate the engagement today, the shares, the loves, the likes, the comments. Really appreciate it from you guys. And we'll get back to this likely on Monday, thinking because of you, Brian, we're going to try and do this daily because I think it's good for you guys, and we can get a lot of questions answered. So thank you guys so much for being with us today. Focus on what you want to hit next week, and we'll make it happen. I'll talk to you soon, Brian. Andrew, love what you're doing, and thank you guys so much for watching. Talk soon.